evening, or else good day, hi, and welcome. All right, so it's Halloween. Itchy ear. Itchy. Sorry, I had to give you the extreme close-up on that, but I had an itchy ear. All right, so not only is it Halloween, but we're on the one-week countdown till the U.S. apocalyptic election that's going on there. Where do I start? I got like a full page. Like, I mean, look at how full that is. I mean, like both sides. I almost ran out of page on both sides. I almost had to start a new page. I can't remember. Ow. Okay. Yeah, I guess I'll start here. So, yeah, okay, this is over in Syria. Basically, the Russians they've been in Syria now for about a year, and they're getting a tally of what they've done, and they've liberated over 300 oil fields and settler areas, about 568 like little towns and whatever that they've liberated, and tens of thousands of people been able to go back now. Right now, Mosul, the Iraqi army's pretty much surrounded one of the last ISIS strongholds. So there's a pretty big offensive going on there, but you can see what they're clearly doing is they're not really killing these ISIS guys. They're herding them, like I said, into Syria to fight Assad, right? But I think that's going to kind of go away the dodo at some point too. Now, bouncing over to Sweden, because of the migrant crisis, again, I've always wanted to visit Sweden just to see how they live. Being the leftist utopianist apparent, just to go for a week or so, just to see how crazy, like, progressive they actually are. It just fascinates me. But it looks like more Swedes have now moved out of Sweden and moved away. You can call it Swedish flight or whatever. Than in 160 years. This is the most exodus from Sweden. Yeah, so that's going to turn into a disaster. Well, Sweden is already in a lot of trouble right now, so it's going to get a lot worse there too. Okay. Now, it turns out there's 9 groups on the coalition forces fighting in Iraq right now, fighting on the ground. So remember Obama saying, no boots on the ground? Well, they don't call them boots. Either make them wear sandals or they call them advisors. But these guys are fighting alongside the Iraqi guys. Now, there's another problem with that too, is because they're not the people that they're like the Kurds don't get along with the Turks don't get along with these guys, those guys don't get along with those guys, and it's just it goes and goes and it goes and goes. And it's basically that it's like the best way it was put. You have 9 groups. Like the U.S. has all these groups in Iraq and stuff like that to fight, and Syria. All these 9 groups that hate each other, and they're trying to work with them. Like is Turkey and Iraq going to have a war? I don't know. I think they're going to see a war within a war within a war. That type of thing. It just goes and it goes and it goes. The Hezbollah and Israel, Hezbollah and like that type of thing. So you have the alliances that are there, but on the Russian side, it's like the people that are on board. The Hezbollah, Iran, the Houthis, and of course the Russians. They're all, and the Syrians. They're all, they're all on the same page. They're not like a group. I'm sure later on those groups might find differences, but right now they're working together to get the job done. So it's a different thing there. Now, there was on Friday from the making of this video, if you didn't check out the Greg Hunter interview, I forget the name of the guy, what did I write his name down? Cliff High. Yeah, he's like, has like a people versus the elites there. He's got these algorithms that he looks for trends and stuff like that, and he says, you have to go, I don't want to get into it too much because I'll sidetrack too far, but basically his algorithm kind of is a bit of a predictor or whatever. It tells you what kind of the most likely outcome is going to be. Like I do, connect the dots. 2 + 2 is going to equal 4. So, when's it going to happen? I don't know, but you can get a good idea just by following. The response to this is most likely going to be A, B, or C, whatever it is going to be, right? And that's what he's saying. And when he says when it comes to Trump is supposed to win 25-1. If we go to what his findings are, which is pretty crazy. And right now we have more. The director of the FBI coming out with more charges against Clinton. Now, here's the thing about that. Remember a little while back, I talked about a dream I had where there was a guy being executed in the courtyard. We hung him and he didn't die, and we shot him, that type of thing. And then Clinton comes in, we hung him, she didn't die, and we just unchambered the round, let her suffer. Not that I'm saying I'm going to do that really, but that was the dream I had. Well, it was kind of like a guy like him. And what I think, maybe if you could get a metaphor out of it, what it was for is all these lower level people that are protecting Clinton right now, they're going to turn on her once they know that the system can take them down. Why? There's no honor amongst thieves, right? I guess is a simple analogy you could put in there. And this guy, if he waits till after the election to release it, they're going to barbecue him. They're going to barbecue him. In fact, he's committed treason. He should be in jail. In most countries, you'd be put up against a wall and shot. And there's a lot of people in the government right now that are treasonous. My government up here in Canada, no exception there either. Treason just seems to be the order of the day. I don't know why people keep going that route. How do they get duped into it? Oh, I got to keep my job. Yeah, but it's treasonous. If it's a treasonous job, it means at best you'd be looking at a lifetime behind bars. Because right now, yeah, but none of these people ever go to jail right now. But people are starting to ask for accountability. Going back to the Greg Hunter's guy there, Cliff High. The people right now aren't fighting. They are fighting each other with the divide and conquer, but that's more leftist Saul Alinsky tactics. Like, really, Black Lives Matter isn't going to make an impact on the world. It's just not going to, And you can use them as an example of divide and conquer. In the inner cities, yes, they're going to burn down the cities, yada, 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 increase racial tensions and stuff like that. But in the grander scheme of things, they're just a distraction. Same thing like the Bundy Ranch stuff and all that. It's just a distraction. In its area, it'll have impact, but I mean, on the greater stage, no. It's not. It doesn't distract enough. The only one thing that distracts everybody completely is the Third World War. That's the only thing that's going to get that kind of a distraction. That way, they can control you through fear and stuff like that. They being, the upper echelons of government, these Rothschild, Rockefeller hacks, and everything. Guadalajara is basically George Soros is talking about having a color revolution there, and in a few southeastern, Malaysia, all throughout Southeast Asia. There's about 5 or 6 countries. So George Soros right now is in full batshit crazy mode, talking about all the countries they need to destabilize, like right now with color revolutions. So again, how does this man, this man is going to face the guillotine at some point. I'm not making any threats. It's just, he's just way, way, way too much of a shit disturber for the planet. He's the most evil man on the planet. Saddam Hussein was a bad man, there's no doubt about that. Hitler was a bad man in a lot of ways. He had some good ideas, granted, sure, but he was a dictator at the end of the day. Stalin was an evil man. Mao Zedong was an evil man. Pol Pot was an evil man. George Soros is no different from those kind of people. He's an evil, evil, evil man. Anywhere his money goes, death and destruction follows. And he thinks he's untouchable, but again, like I said, Muammar Gaddafi is the future of the world elites. I think very soon after this election, we're going to see the purge of elites. People just aren't going to put up with it anymore. Germany sending 600 personnel and tanks and stuff to Lithuania, so they're building up there. Again, all Eastern Europe is being built up. You've got all these tanks being stuffed in caves and stuff like that. So it's a slow build-up. Russia sees this. They're definitely, definitely not going to hold that one back. Okay, I'll get to this one after. Okay. Can you read? Oh yes, this one comes in, I guess, last night or the night before. The U.S. There's basically an AWACS E-33. It altered its flight path in Syria and put itself right in conflict with an Su-35. Basically, the Russian that's the Russians' frontline fighter. They got close to it. They were, don't know all the details, but basically they were putting that AWAC in a position where it could get shot down. The Russians didn't respond. I don't think the Russians are going to respond to an AWAC. An F-16, maybe. So this could be the U.S. probing the Russian no-fly zone. But I think the no-fly zone, the way it's going to work is this. The Russians aren't just going to shoot down anything American. They're not going to shoot down, they might shoot down a drone, sure. But I think they're just going to jam the drones. They have the abilities to do it, and that's what they've been doing. I mean, right now, nobody can see what the Russians are really doing in Syria because of their new radar jamming systems. The Israelis can't see anything, the Americans can't see anything, NATO can't see anything. The Russians have whatever they're using to jam radars and satellites and stuff like that. It apparently works extremely well. So sending in an AWAC, again, if you're a Russian fighter pilot, you're not really threatened by this thing. I'm sure some AWACS might have air defense missiles on them. Some, they might be able to carry an AIM-9 or something, or an AIM-120 on them. But for the most part, this is not something, it's not going to be, it would be a nice little snack for the Su-35. It's not a threat to the Su-35. And it's not a bomber. Now, that said, this was an A-10 coming in. The Russians would probably shadow this thing with their Su-35, and if it was getting too close to to their troops, they would probably issue the warning: don't go in that area. Our troops are in that area, and that's what the Russians exactly did. They let the Americans know we're in this area. They do this. They seem to do this all the time in the U.S., and the coalition forces seem to ignore it. So it's like the Russians say we're operating in this area at this time. So right now, again, it's a provocation. Now, maybe that E3 has legitimate, maybe they were spying on ISIS guys or something. I mean, there could be legitimate things for that. But considering the rhetoric out there, it would be in the best interest if the U.S. would say, okay, yeah, we're going in to do this surveillance and stuff like that, watch out for our aircraft. So you're not really cooperating, but you're at least letting the other guy know, well, we're going to be in the area too. And I think that would be fine. That would be fine. No one's going to contest that. You don't have to like each other, you don't have to work each other, but just stay out of each other's way as much as possible. And if you have to be in the same region, coordinate, so you don't have any incidents. But we clearly see that's again, the provocation for the U.S. central bankers to go to war is I know a lot of my American audience think I'm always I'm pro-Russia and anti-U.S., but I'm not really. I'm anti-governments. The governments around the world have failed the people. There are no good guys. And the thing is like with Russia, I know where they stand pretty much, to a degree. But Russia has its own problems. The Russian people, they can deal with that. That's up for them to deal with. But it's so clear that, with all what's going on, if you follow this channel, you know why I do that. But no, I wouldn't want, I know there's a lot of people that, that are really pro-Russia, pro-Putin, kind of get mad at me for saying it. But I wouldn't want to live under Putin either. Obama or Putin, I wouldn't want to live under either, But right now, the world, unfortunately, us little guys, have to deal with this madness. That's what it is. Yeah, so moving right down. I can't even read my own handwriting. Some of this it was pretty dark when I was writing it. Yeah, this is interesting, and this is something like again, I kind of hint to people on my channel when they talk about training. The Russians have this government-organized paintball thing and other training things like that to train civilians how to basically be soldiers. Maybe not hardcore soldiers, but weekend warriors. In other words, these people will be good cannon fire to have pass the Mo's and the guns to, what I mean? Or the SKSs. Here, we got a surplus of SKSs. Fight for your country, just arm everybody. And a little bit of training. And I was listening to the guy that, now mind you, this comes from the BBC. And the guy that was training all these people in this paintball thing, they're civilians. So they're training civilians how to, coordinate and fight like a group. Maybe not hardcore military like special forces, but just basic training to the point where it's not even basic training. It's just and if you've ever played paintball, here's what I'll say. If you want to see what war is going to be like for real and get an idea, play paintball. And as soon as you get hit in a vital area, stop your game, go home, you're done. You're dead. You're not, okay, well, I'll wait, sit it out and wait and go again. No, there's no reset button. You're done. That's it. You shoot till you stay alive. Last time I played paintball, a couple of years ago, I stayed alive for about 4 hours. So I think I did pretty good. Yeah, I killed a lot of the other guys. But I got a freaking paintball right to the eyeball, and I didn't even see it. It was like, I was sniped out like so good. The second one, the guy, he sniped me good. There was two of them. They got on the ground. They both fell together. They were both shooting at me. I got the first guy, and I just peppered him. 3 shots, boom, boom, boom. And just by the time I went to move over to the other guy, he was on the trigger faster than me. Paf, right in the heart. I was like, shit, that was a nice shot. It would have been quick for me if it was a real shot. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, and I saw it. I saw it coming. Like it was a numbers game, 2 against 1. You know. So yeah, in a real world scenario, you're not going to live very long. But the guys that play paintball are going to do slightly better than the people with no experience whatsoever. The guys that play airsoft are going to do slightly better. But I think those guys get killed quickly because they're going to be in that mode. They're going to probably be good in the sense that they're going to be braver, not out of real bravery, but out of naivety of, okay, well, if I get hit, I just go sit out for 10 minutes and then the new game starts and then we go again, right? So there's going to be a lot of, those guys will be very useful cannon fodder, that's all I'll say. But they could win, overwhelmed with numbers. You might possibly win. That is the Soviet technology, or ideology, now even though it's the Russian Federation. So that's something that's ongoing, of course. The leader was saying, when he was asked by the BBC reporter, well, why are you guys doing this, that type of thing? Are you training up a civilian army? Well, yeah, of course. It's kind of like patriotic duty, that type of thing. I'd be like, I'd do it. And of course, most of them are like teenagers and stuff like that. And they're like, wow, we don't really follow politics. We don't listen to Russian TV. It's all propaganda. We don't listen to any TV really because it's all propaganda. So they're not stupid. They know what's going on. But like, it's like, well, we're hoping that it gets to a point where we don't have to, Russia and the United States can work together so we don't have a war. Now, the thing is that when they talk about the guy instructing, he goes, oh, yeah, he goes, yeah, like he's basically, right now what Russia is doing is telling the United States that, no, it cannot rule the world. It's stepping in. Now, this also, I will bring up Alexander Dugin. I do know about him, that type of thing. So, basically, he's saying, like, the Ukraine, when, the United States, it's so clearly, openly admitted, even by George Soros himself, that they destabilized Ukraine. They armed the neo-Nazi groups to go in, overthrow the government. There would be no war in Ukraine right now if it wasn't for U.S. foreign policy. And, all the Zionists, bankers that came in. Even a Ukrainian general said, yeah, we got taken over by Zionist bankers. All that. It just, that type of thing. But they armed, basically, they armed the Ukraine. I guess the goal was to overtake the Ukraine, to either get Russia to respond by just having, basically roll tanks into Ukraine, right up to the Transnistrian border, which, because they work with Transnistria, then they could build up on the Polish border, and then NATO could have a claim for Article 5 at some point. Again, if you are an Eastern European, understand the United States government wants Russia to go to war with Eastern Europe, to wear out its troops fighting. You're slated for death and destruction. This is clearly their plan. Is it their exact plan? I don't know, but you can clearly see it. The idea was to lure Russia into an Eastern European war. Not all of Europe, but just, if they can get Poland and Russia to fight, and Lithuania and Romania and all those places to fight, and Hungary, it kills all the Eastern Europeans, but it wears down the Russian military. So if you think that the U.S. government is in your country for the women and children democracy, well, then you're just stupid. There's nothing I could. They're not there for that. They're there because they want Russia. The idea is if Russia wears its troops out on Eastern Europe, they can put Article 5 in. Okay, Article 5, and then by that time it's like, okay, well, NATO at that point would be able to take Russia with no problem. Well, maybe not no problem, but they would have a clear advantage over Russia. Right now, NATO with the United States does not have a clear advantage over Russia. It would be so close. I don't know who would win. I think there'd be 5 people left on the planet after the dust settles. And you have to understand that Russia works in tandem with China. So Article 5 with Europe or NATO, gets all the NATO coalition forces together to fight Russia. But Russia has a pact with China and vice versa, that if the United States goes to war with them, they'll get pulled in. So it's a 1-2 punch, and NATO cannot take on Russia and China together. They just don't have the numbers. I'm not saying Russia and China, again, in this kind of war, it's really who strategizes the best that's going to win. Right now, I think the upper hand is to the Russian strategy. I do follow the U.S. strategies. I know it's not a matter of whose soldiers are better, it's where you put them. It's not a matter of whose planes are better, or missiles are better, or faster. It's where you put them and what you fire them at. That's the key. Go back, basically to like the Battle of 300 with King Leonidas. They made the movie 300 about. That was based on a true thing. What gave them the advantage? It wasn't that these guys were really that good. It's they had this strategic advantage of the landscape, that it just funneled all these Persians right into a slaughter fest. They were able to. 2 Israeli Centurion tanks on the Golan Heights. I forget, 50 or 60 other tanks they destroyed, just because they were just sitting there at this angle that by the time the enemy came up, they were shooting underneath everybody's tanks and blowing them up. They had this amazing strategic point. 2 tanks took on 50. The Battle of Agincourt. They just slaughtered all these Frenchmen. The Brits were outnumbered by at the Battle of Agincourt. It was a farmer's field. It wasn't until years later where people visited and figured out why they had such a huge advantage. Number one, the field was muddy. The horses got bogged down on the fields. The archers were up on a hill, and it was just a turkey shoot. And then, of course, as the horses and the bodies piled up, it slowed the other guys down, so the cavalry couldn't come in, the foot soldiers couldn't. It was just a slaughter fest. These advantages. Turn it the other way around, that type of thing. Stanford Bridge. One guy killed like 40 other guys until somebody got under the bridge with a spear and speared him in the groin. That type of thing. Apparently this guy was like 6 foot something. For the time, he would have been a giant. You know what I mean? Big, powerful man with an axe, a big Dane axe. Fighting William the Conqueror's men. But so strategy, again, is sometimes way more important than the weaponry. Again, World War I weaponry is still dangerous today. If a World War I artillery shell comes through your roof, you're dead. You know what I mean? That type of thing. So we have to look at it like that. But yeah, this does play into what's going on. The ramping up the training, the drill. Somebody pointed out about the drill. He said, why is it a big deal now of this 40 million people Russian drilled? Because in 2013 it was 60 million. Barely got any coverage. I think the story is that it's being covered. The Russians are clearly, ramping up signals too. So they're releasing all this stuff so people do panic. I think what they're doing is they're showing they're showing that, like Putin said, this isn't funny anymore. All this, demonizing a Russian, provoking Russia's going to attack nobody. Well, he's right and he's wrong. He's right in that Russia's not going to strike first. Russia's not going to strike first. That's why all the provoking in the Middle East and stuff like that, like the Russians know that the reason why they're there to stop the U.S., again, from controlling the world, so to speak, which is really the bankers controlling the world, is the reason why they're there, because they know after Syria falls, Iran's next, and after Iran, it's China and then Russia. So they know they're going to go to war anyway. Putin's speech recent, I didn't get to see his whole speech, but that I usually like to listen to, but I captured some of the highlights. But I usually like to listen to Putin just to hear what he's got to say. Again, listen to the world leaders. The rest of the news, make it for yourself. Think for yourself. But that type of thing. Yeah, Alexander Dugin. This is like Putin's right-hand man, or maybe the puppet master. Glenn Beck did a thing on him there, of course. Demonizing. But again, you listen to these guys. He's a Russian nationalist oligarch that basically he's saying, like, look, the United States is going around basically policing the world and controlling the world, and everybody's got to go along with what they want, or whatever, or they get destroyed. And he says what Russia's doing is saying no to that. They're basically, they're not going to have it. So they know that conflict is coming no matter what. But he says, when we stepped in Ukraine, that was us basically saying no, NATO's going no further. That type of thing. That's them saying no, you're not going to bully the world. Them getting into Syria, same thing. You're not going to bully the world. He goes, and basically what he's saying is that not everybody is going, like the Russians don't accept westernized liberal values and stuff like that. In general, they want to do their own thing. And you know what? Fine, let them do their own thing. I have no problem with that. But what they're saying is that basically trying to force, all this on the world is not going to work. That Russia is its own thing, and other countries need to, be able to go their own way and do business who they want to do business, live their own lives. And I agree with the Russians on that. Yeah, I do agree with the Russians on that. If you want to live in these other countries, like these other, like I don't care how the Middle East lives. I mean, if they want to live that way, I just don't want it here. That type of thing. That's my thing. I am all for sovereign countries. I am, regardless of their custom, like if their way of life isn't the same as my way of life, I'm just not going to go there. You know what I mean? That type of thing. That said, this idea that everybody has to get in line and all this death and destruction, basically they're saying that no, nobody can rule the world. And he says, and to find out who is the ruler of the world, only war can decide that. This is Alexander Dugin saying this. He says the only way to find out for sure who rules the world is by going to war. Basically, only a war can decide, who rules, that type of thing. So, the Russians, again, they're not saying they want war. They're saying that, no, this is the line, you can't cross it. And again, I always say that the only thing that gets a military response from Russia on the United States is basically, I mean, tit for tat, shooting down airliners and shooting down fighter jets and AWACS and stuff like that. That's going to happen. The Russians, I think, probably days. I mean, we're 1 week away from the the U.S. election. You got Hillary Clinton's Ada Hama, however you say her name. She's nowhere to be seen. This is one of her campaign managers. This woman has just disappeared. Nowhere to be seen. Kind of funny. Again, I said watch for stuff like that. I'm not saying she's dead, but she did disappear. So watch. Look at all the bizarreness we've seen up to this point. But don't be surprised within the next couple of days if you see Russia doing something extremely insane, such as shoot down like 3 or 4 U.S. coalition forces, airplanes, or even if they're not U.S., whatever coalition airplanes are in Syria. The Russians have said if your guys, if you got an A-10 coming in and it's heading towards their guys, they're going to shoot it down. They've given warnings. They've done this. They've done that. They've they're always letting the United States know where they're going to be in Syria. They do this. They do this. Again, are they saints? No. Are they killing civilians? Probably, sure. Can you prove it? Different story. The United States is a little easier to prove where they're killing because they're kind of openly admitting it. That type of thing. We strike this area today. And like a whole bunch of civilians go, no, those are all collateral damage and ISIS guys. But it's not true. You know what I mean? Like so both sides again killing a lot of people. There's no doubt about that. U.S. Plan B in Syria is basically to give more weapons to ISIS. It looks like they're they're trying to get more MADPAN launchers and their TOW missiles. Again, these things do run out. Like I mean, some of these launchers you can only fire them once. That type of thing. So it does look like that's a big thing going on. I mean, how many billions of dollars? I mean, Obamacare is failing, and billions and billions of dollars arming to overthrow Assad. You know what I mean? Like all that, they get really. But if you think it's just about Assad, it makes no sense. When you understand it's about the Greater Israel Project and the Oden Plan to secularize the entire Middle East or Balkanize the Middle East, then you understand more. Putin was saying that in his most recent speech there, he was saying, kind of taking pot shots in a politically correct way at the United States, saying that with all this anti-Russian rhetoric going on in the U.S. and stuff like that, it's not called for. It's not funny anymore. Russia's not a threat. Yada yada yada. With all the crazy stuff going on there, the U.S. isn't a banana republic. Wink, wink, wink. He said, it's basically the beacon of the hope for the world and all this stuff. He puts it on thick, and then But what I just really wanted to say is that because we don't believe it's a banana republic, but he's saying, yeah, we think it's a banana republic. That's what Putin's saying. And again with what's going on with the voting machines. Like in 2012 where people were voting for Romney and Obama's name would just pop up. Well, it looks like these electronic voting machines are doing the same thing with the early voters where you go to vote for Trump and Hillary Clinton. It marks Hillary Clinton. So that's, so that's going on. And these are those George Soros poll machines. That's why people, I think, are going to demand paper ballots. If they can't steal the election, like at this point, I mean, the mainstream media is even starting to get nervous. They're starting to talk about the email scandals. And I've noticed in this week, their anti-Trumpness, they've actually kind of hushed that a little bit on the CBC up here in Canada. Not too much, but I mean they're still anti-Trump. It's just, but they're openly bashing them. I think that the mainstream media is extremely nervous right now because if Trump was to win, which he will not win, he's not allowed. It's her turn to win because she's a woman and she's a Clinton. So, the selection has already been made. It's not an election, right? So when she wins, I think there's going to be a lot of crazy stuff happening. The 9th, I think the only thing that's going to be more exciting than the 8th of October is the 9th of October, the fallout. Like, wow, is that going to be just the calm before the storm? Like all bets are off and game on? I don't know. But I think it's going to be interesting one way or the other. If it hasn't been interesting up to this point, that everything. So like the Russians again, they're warning as much as they can, even if Putin is lying. The rhetoric is out there saying, and again, I don't trust Putin either. Like, I mean, he is, he's a chess player, he's a judo guy. Yeah, he understands strategy, and he's, clearly outthunked and it's not just him. He's got some pretty smart guys outthinking with him, but they're not necessarily the good guys either. And there's some people who think, if we get into war and the Russians come over the hilltops, that they're going to be here to save us from the Obamas and stuff like that. No, this is why I'm not pro Putin at all. If you look at Russian history, when they take an area and they take it. They rape the women. They brutalize if you thought the Nazis were bad, the Red Army was just as worse. You know what I mean? Like, it's what they do. They conquer. When you get conquered, you get conquered. You know what I mean? This is kind of, and it's not just them. I mean, you can find this from one civilization to the next throughout history. The Mongols, when they conquered, they took the women. They killed the men. You've seen it here in North America with the natives. They got conquered. You know what I mean? That type of thing. Bad things happen. Eventually, things settle down. But you can look at Eastern Europe. I mean, there's a lot of people in Eastern Europe don't like Russians. There's a lot of bad blood there. That said, this day and age, it has calmed down a lot. But that's calm down is only one incident away from complete batshit insanity, right? So, just to give you an idea. Okay, now, the police are out there talking about the French no-go zones. I think there's something like 700 of them in France. France is at a turning point. It has to go to war with itself in order to figure out who gets France. These Sharia no-go zones, I don't think they're going to be there when the 10th Crusade really kicks off. I think France might be the first place where it kicks off, but I think that comes on the heels of the next election. Now, Marine Le Pen, if she's able to win, again, how they kind of stopped her, because I'm not sure, I think France has 2 elections, one every 2 years type of thing. One's for, because I think they have a prime minister and a president there. Those kind of, it's the same like Russia where they have prime minister and president. Here we just have a prime minister, in the States they just have a president. So I'm not 100% on the whole French election thing. All I know is Francois Hollande was out there saying, well, if the economy doesn't approve, I'm not, again, they don't want to be on the next batch. The next batch is a complete disaster of elections, right? But in the last one, it was the same thing that happened in Austria. All the parties that were losing forfeited all their votes towards the mainstream party, which was just enough to defeat Le Pen in the last election. And you've seen it in Austria. But Austria is having a new election come up. Now, with the migrant crisis, the populism is rising everywhere. Nationalism is starting to rise everywhere. Now, depending on which way it goes, it really will be, I think, when France, you can see now they've kind of tore down the jungle. Now there's Jungle 2 in France, where all these refugees are. Well, they're migrants. They're not refugees. Maybe some of them are, but that type of thing. And they're trying to get these refugees or migrants to these new and divide them all over the place. But it doesn't work like that. Like these camps are tribal as well, and the violence is there. The police are quitting. So once your police quit, then you're reliant on your military and martial law. But if your police quit, your police are the... I think it's harder for police to quit than it is for the military to stage a coup. I could see, like French Revolution 3.0 is pretty much, the makings are there. Is it everywhere in France? So there's probably safe places you can go in France. I've never been there, so, but I hear from people from there and stuff like that. The people that live near these no-go zones, They're not necessarily expanding in the areas that they're in. It's just new ones are popping up. And by spreading these migrants around, you're going to get more no-go zones. So at some point, the populace is just going to say, you know what? We've protested. It didn't work. They've cracked down on their own people. Germany, same thing. So will it be Germany that starts the 10th Crusade? What qualifies as the first Crusader battle is when populace starts killing populace, meaning a bunch of Muslims are going to be killed by a bunch of Germans. A bunch of French are going to kill a bunch of Muslims. It'll be probably a small skirmish, like 10 on 10 type of thing. But it's not going to be a fist fight. It's going to be, lamps and swords and knives and guns and just everything. Just people killing each other. It'll be a counter-terrorist attack to another terrorist attack or something like that. For example, the next terrorist attack in France could spark, a bunch of French guys going out and killing a bunch of Muslims. That type of thing. You're going to start to see it in beatdowns and attacks, xenophobic attacks first, which they will be. They will be. And a lot of innocent people are going to get killed in this crossfire. That's why I say if you see it coming, get out of the way. And again, I can't give a better warning. If you're a minority in these countries, there's 6 million Muslims in France or Germany. I can't remember which country. One of the three. You're going to have war there. You can't have that many Muslims in your country. I know it's offensive to say that because there is a lot of peaceful Muslims out there, sure. But amongst them, or again, without vetting them in and having that many, you've got yourself a populist uprising. You see it between, like the Kurds and the Turks, protesting in Germany. They don't even bring any police out to quail the protest because they're too scared of these groups. And again, I do believe if the ADF or AFD or whatever they're called in Germany wins the next election and overthrows Merkel, at some point, yes, Turkey and Germany go to war. Trust me, there's going to be German tanks on the Turkish border. You cross this line, you die. That type of thing. That's what's going to happen. Merkel, if she wins the next election, then the Germans are just going to go into complete batshit crazy revolt. I think Sweden will be the last to go into revolt, but because even though a lot of people are leaving Sweden, I can imagine it's those lukewarm leftists that are leaving Sweden. The people that are not quite as wealthy, that are probably what you would call right-wing extremists, well, these people are the people that have to live near these Sharia zones and stuff like that. So at some point, it's going to be very, very clear that there's going to be a clash. There's going to be the biggest human culture clash in history. And you can call me racist, bigot, whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm just the guy pointing this stuff out. When you see it happen, and how much of it have we've already seen happen? Quite a bit. But the major Crusader battles haven't started yet. And when that starts, then civil war is there. I still say the biggest one is going to be in Great Britain. 20,000 on 20,000, 50,000 on 50,000. It's just going to be a big freaking battle royale in the middle of the street. And again, like I say, if you don't want to get caught up in it, when you see it, get the hell out of the way. If you're a minority in 3 to 5 years or 2 to 5 years, Europe is not going to be a safe country for you. It's just way too divided at the moment. The police aren't defending the people. They won't arrest these migrants that are raping and stuff like that. And again, one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. We know how this works, right? So you have to keep that in mind. So when that happens, again, if you don't want to get caught up in it, just stay out of the way. That's the best warning I can give to people, regardless of where you stand on the issue. So far, the U.S. State Department, the U.S. debt is. I hear so many different numbers here, but right now is at $206 trillion. If you add it all up, 53% of it is Wall Street financed. So yeah, Wall Street needs to go. There's if you haven't heard of this, this is new to me. The seventh floor group, shadow government, and there's 3 stages of government. One is the deep state. That's the second one. The first one is continuity of government. Third is the shadow government, and the shadow government is the 7th floor group. I've never heard of them before, but these are the guys that when all else fails, and apparently they're getting active again, that they take over. So you might want to look into them, and that's what's happening in the States. When you're right, sometimes when I'm doing my research, it's really dark and I can't read Oh yeah, okay. Over in, they're already talking about getting rid of Duterte, Rodrigo Duterte. They're over there in the Philippines. Again, you're going to see a color revolution there. There's no doubt about that over there, because the Philippines have pretty much turned its back on the United States. They're now going to be pro-China. Yeah, over 3,000. What you call it? Over there in Ukraine, over 3,000 of right sector and whatever have been sent over to the line of scrimmage, I guess you'd say. And there's a no-fly zone in Ukraine as well. And there was a helicopter shot down with some prominent people on it there about a week or two ago. Apparently, a whole bunch of C-130s are going to Iraq. They're, I guess bringing in all kinds of supplies. So to me, probably weapons. This is for the Raqqa offensive. But who are those weapons going to go to? Are the Iraqis or ISIS? I don't know. UK sending 20 advisors to train, basically you might as well say the ISIS guys, the moderate rebels. They're going in there. Egypt, if you've been, you don't hear much about Egypt more, but Egypt is slowly turning towards Russia. Again, more, they're still in the coalition force, but yet they're kind of, this could be Russia coming in on the back door too, to kind of control things. Egypt does seem to be a bit more swayed towards Russia. They're buying weapons from Russia. They're, mind you, Russia, again, this is what I mean about no good guys. I mean, yes, the U.S. is openly selling weapons or giving weapons to ISIS. But again, these ISIS guys are using a lot of Russian equipment too, right? So, yeah, so, they'll learn both sides. Both sides are making money. And again, no good guys, right? Yeah, so, people warning, Putin warning the people about, the rhetoric from the United States isn't funny anymore, and its people does not want war with the United States. They don't want war with the West. They just want to have their way in whatever. You got 300 Syrians killed by a U.S. airstrike. Mostly civilians, I guess, is what they are. But yeah, again, nothing on the news about that. Russia's tested its RS-28 hypersonic warhead, and it's a hypersonic gliding warhead. That one, RS-28. South Korea jets basically returned from Alaska, Operation Red Flag drill. So that's what was going on there. And then I'll finish up with, this is the one that, again, as we get close to the election, again, I talk about Putin playing the crazy man like North Korea. He hasn't done that yet, but the build to it is there. So unveiled to the public for the first time is the very dreaded SARMAT RS-28 missiles just before the U.S. election. Now, this thing is actually more terrifying than I thought. It doesn't carry 10 warheads, it carries 12. And one of these missiles has enough firepower to take out an area the size of France or Texas. Now, the blast itself, no, but the fallout, strategically firing it, it would destroy a huge area. How many of the Russians, these apocalyptic machines, are Russia going to build? I don't know. The warheads that the Russians have, again, they're virtually unstoppable. If you could shoot down, they also let out decoys as well. So, the thing is that these warheads, they're almost unbeatable. They're almost unbeatable. And to push us towards that is complete insanity. So they're unveiling this thing just before the election. I think, yes, anybody out there saying that the Russians aren't trying to sway the U.S. election, of course they are. Of course they are. Everybody's got vested interest in it. Israel, definitely wants Clinton in there. AIPAC wants Clinton in there. Wall Street wants Clinton in there. Rothschilds, Rockefellers, Soros wants, and Kissinger wants Clinton in there. The media wants Clinton in there because it's all one system. You know, so if Trump was to win, which he won't, you know, the Russians know that a Clinton win is a vote for war. They've said it several times in the past week. You know, a vote for Clinton is a vote for war. And, you know, a lot of people are saying, even Jill Stein, again, I don't know what all her policies are. I can imagine she's as leftist as possible and can't count, like most leftists can't. You know, we're just going to give everybody free stuff that we can't give them. But at least she's not insane. And she, you know, she's explaining very well how a Hillary Clinton win. She goes, I won't sleep well with Trump if he wins, but she goes, I definitely won't sleep well if Clinton wins. Like, her policies will lead us to war. And listening to Hillary Clinton on no-fly zone, you know, when asking her, what do you do when a no-fly zone means you fly, you die. You move in that area, that's it. What do you do when a Russian aircraft flies into a U.S. no-fly zone in Syria? And Hillary Clinton's, well, no, there's going to be negotiation. The Russians are clearly going to understand and stuff like that. I know exactly what a no-fly zone means. And so but she won't answer the question. What do you do when the Russians call that bluff? You know, we've just seen what the Russians will do. They're not going to shoot down an AWAC. No, why? They'll lose the upper hand if they do that. Public opinion is on their side because of their strategy, not because they're good guys, because their strategy. You know, and it's kind of funny. Something I've said a while ago. We're in a bizarre world where the only thing the Russians have to do to make the U.S. look bad is tell the truth, which is kind of the right thing. But don't for a second think that the Russians won't seize the upper hand if they got it. You know, once that type of thing. Their government is just as corrupt as the U.S. government, if not more, in a lot of ways. So I know I don't always comes off that I'm more pro-Putin and stuff like that. I'm not really pro-Putin. There is a lot of good things that he's done for his people, but not a lot of great things he's done for people. He's excellent with the propaganda and the populist. Sure. But on the other hand, one area where I agree with Putin a lot is that I don't believe Russia wants war, because they've been clearly given many opportunities to go to war. If they wanted war, they could have started it 10 years ago. You know, they could have started it at any time. The Russians don't want war. The Chinese don't want war. The U.S. wants war. The U.S. government wants war, not the U.S. people. I think the U.S. people are about to overthrow its government in the next year or two, 2 years max. There will be a U.S. military coup after a Hillary Clinton win. It just doesn't come in 2017 or 2018. And you have to understand that could be a part of the plan altogether. Again, if the United States breaks up into secession movements, the Chinese will win big on this. So will the Russians. Why? Because basically the Odeon plan goes into the U.S. instead of into the Middle East. That said, again, it's only after everything, the dust settles, that you figure out what the plan was. So again, are we watching a big theater that it's all theater, they're all in on it together, or are we actually watching empires fighting? Again, looking at the world in two, the transatlantic Anglo-American empire with the petrodollar versus the Eurasian Pacific empire with China, Russia, India, and Iran, and the BRICS nations, etc., and others joining. I don't know. We could be looking at both. It's hard to say. The idea that the world elites have so much control over every little thing and it's all going to plan. I know Henry Kissinger's Masonic Order from Chaos. You know, you could say that's part of it, sure, but I don't think it's going according to plan. I do believe Russia is probably doing what more like Alexander Dugin is saying that no, we're not going to be bullied. No, they're not going to police the world. You know, where they intervene to do regime change, we're going to intervene to keep the world. And you know what? If the Americans read their Constitution, you know, getting involved in even here in Canada, like we just follow the states. That's, again, we've lost our sovereignty a long time ago. And under Trudeau, we're going to lose way more under the Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership and CETA, that type of thing. So NAFTA was bad. This stuff is going to be worse. Unfortunately, we don't have a patriotic Canadian government. We never, you know, not in my lifetime anyway. I think the last, you know, the best prime minister we ever had was our first prime minister, Sir John A. Macdonald. Knew how to keep us out of the war with the States, ran a tight ship, whatever. And, you know, again, it was, you know, from there, it was good up until we got the first Pierre Elliott Trudeau. Now we have his son. And so the past 40 years has been hell-bent on destroying Canadian sovereignty. And it's been done for the Anglo-American Empire. And, you know, again, why is Canada selling its oil in U.S. currency? You know, how powerful would our country be if we sold our resources in Canadian dollars? It would be pretty darn, you know, or took gold and silver or whatever on trade, or materials, lumber for titanium, whatever. However it works out. And if I was a nationalist, if we ever got a nationalist government, and one of the things that I would want them to do, if I wasn't a part of it, which I'd like to be a part of it, is to say, well, we accept, you can pay us in several different ways. Barter and trade works just as good as fiat currency. You know, in fact, it's better. You know, you get a resource, we get a resource. That type of thing. You know, it defeats the tax plan, and yet, you know, you find whatever the value. Okay, well, we're selling it in this currency. We're selling it in that. Okay, we'll do the conversion. Okay, you give us this much. We'll give you this much lumber. You give us this much something we don't have. I don't know, oranges, whatever. Okay, so you don't have currency to trade. You could trade, and people are going to draw that conclusion pretty soon. Some countries already have. They do trade and stuff like that. But just wrapping up. Again, it's very, very clear where we're at. We'll have to keep an eye on things, but I think in the next 7 days we're going to see some pretty spectacular things too. But, you know, again, when Hillary Clinton wins, I think that's when the world is going to take a terrifyingly interesting but terrifying turn for the worst. I do believe the Russians they're not bluffing when they say a vote for Hillary Clinton is a vote for war. I do believe they're telling us the truth. I don't think they really want war. Again, they've had lots of opportunities. But we know the Anglo-American Empire, the Rothschild, Rockefeller, that's all, they need war. The United States has a death and debt-based economy. They have to go to war. Take our currency, or you get democracy JDAMs. And that's where we're at. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. So if you like this kind of content, please consider making a donation to the channel. Links down below. Thank you so much to everybody who has. Next to that, rate, subscribe, share, comment, like. Be true to yourself, be true to others. Always, always do the right thing, and have yourselves a great day. Ooh, happy Halloween! Good evening, or else good day, hi, and welcome. All right, so it's Halloween. Itchy ear. Itchy ear. Sorry, I had to give you the extreme close-up on that, but I had an itchy ear. All right, so not always at Halloween, but we're on the 1 week countdown till the U.S. apocalyptic election that's going on there. Where do I start? I got like a full page. Like, I mean, look at how full that is. I mean, like both sides. I almost ran out of page on both sides. I almost had to start a new page. I can't remember. Ow. Okay. Yeah, I guess I'll start here. So, yeah, okay, this is over in Syria. Basically, the Russians they've been in Syria now for about a year, and they're getting a tally of what they've done, and they've liberated over 300 oil fields and settler areas, about 568 like little towns and whatever that they've liberated, and you know tens of thousands of people been able to go back now. Right now, Mosul, the Iraqi army's pretty much surrounded one of the last ISIS strongholds. So there's a pretty big offensive going on there, but you can see what they're clearly doing is they're not really killing these ISIS guys. They're herding them, like I said, into Syria to fight Assad, right? But I think that's going to kind of go away the dodo at some point too. Now, bouncing over to Sweden, because of the migrant crisis, again, you know, I've always wanted to visit Sweden just to see how they live. You know, being the leftist utopianist apparent, just to go for a week or so, just to see how crazy, like, progressive they actually are. You know, it just fascinates me. But it looks like more Swedes have now moved out of Sweden and moved away. You can call it Swedish flight or whatever. Than in 160 years. This is the most exodus from Sweden. Yeah, so that's going to turn into a well, Sweden is already in a lot of trouble right now, so it's going to get a lot worse there too. Okay. Now, it turns out there's 9 groups in the coalition forces fighting in Iraq right now, fighting on the ground. So remember Obama saying, you know, no boots on the ground? Well, they don't call them boots. Either make them wear sandals or they call them advisors. But these guys are fighting alongside the Iraqi guys. Now, there's another problem with that too, is because they're not the people that they're, you know, like the Kurds don't get along with the Turks don't get along with these guys don't get along with those guys, and it's just going, it goes and goes and it goes and goes. And it's basically that, you know, it's like I like the best way it was put. You have 9 groups, you know, like the U.S. has all these groups in Iraq and stuff like that to fight, and Syria. All these 9 groups that hate each other, and they're trying to work with them. Like, and like, is Turkey and Iraq going to have a war? I don't know. I think they're going to see a war within a war within a war. That type of thing. It just goes and it goes and it goes. Hezbollah and Israel, Hezbollah and like that type of thing. So you have the alliances that are there, but on the Russian side, it's like the people that are on board are on board. The Hezbollah, Iran, the Houthis. And of course the Russians, they're all, and the Syrians, they're all, they're all on the same page. They're not like a group. I'm sure later on those groups might find differences, but right now they're working together to get the job done. So it's a different thing there. Now there was on Friday from the making of this video. If you didn't check out the Greg Hunter interview, I forget the name of the guy. What did I write his name down? Cliff High. Yeah, he's like has like a people versus the elites there. He's got these algorithms that he looks for trends and stuff like that, and he says, you have to go. I don't want to get into it too much because I'll sidetrack too far. But basically, his algorithm kind of is a bit of a predictor or whatever. It tells you what kind of the most likely outcome is going to be. Like I do. Connect the dots. 2 + 2 is going to equal 4. So. When's it going to happen? I don't know, but you can get a good idea just by following, the response to this is most likely going to be A, B, or C, whatever it is going to be, right? And that's what he's saying. And when he says when it comes to Trump is supposed to win 25-1 if we go to what his findings are, which is pretty crazy. And right now we have the director of the FBI coming out with more charges against Clinton. Now, here's the thing about that. Remember a little while back, I talked about a dream I had where, there was a guy being executed in the courtyard. We hung him and he didn't die, and we shot him, that type of thing. And then Clinton comes in, we hung him, she didn't die, and we just, unchambered the round and let her suffer. Not that I'm saying I'm going to do that, really. But that was the dream I had. Well, it was kind of like a guy like him. And what I think, maybe if you could get a metaphor out of it, what it was for is all these lower level people that are protecting Clinton right now, they're going to turn on her once they know that the system can take them down. Why? There's no honor amongst thieves, right? I guess is a simple analogy you could put in there. And this guy, if he waits till after the election to release it, they're going to barbecue him. They're going to barbecue him. In fact, he's committed treason. He should be in jail. In most countries, you'd be put up against a wall and shot. And there's a lot of people in the government right now that are treasonous. My government up here in Canada, no exception there either. Treason just seems to be the order of the day. I don't know why people keep going that route. How do they get duped into it? Oh, I got to keep my job. Yeah, but it's treasonous. If it's a treasonous job, it means at best you'd be looking at a lifetime behind bars. But because right now, yeah, but none of these people ever go to jail right now. But people are starting to ask for accountability, going back to the Greg Hunter's guy there, Cliff High. The people right now aren't fighting. They are fighting each other with the divide and conquer, but that's more leftist Saul Alinsky tactics. Like, really, Black Lives Matter isn't going to make an impact on the world. It's just not going to, And you can use them as an example of divide and conquer. In the inner cities, yes, they're going to burn down the cities, yada, 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 increase racial tensions and stuff like that. But in the grander scheme of things, they're just a distraction. Same thing like the Bundy Ranch stuff and all that. It's just a distraction. In its area, it'll have impact, but I mean, on the greater stage, no. It's not. It doesn't distract enough. The only one thing that distracts everybody completely is the Third World War. That's the only thing that's going to get that kind of a distraction. That way, they can control you through fear and stuff like that. They being, the upper echelons of government, these Rothschild, Rockefeller hacks, and everything.